Let me start by asking, in the book you are very critical of some of the people around President Trump and some of the appointments that he made. You famously described them, some of those key figures, as riffraff. Yet people would say, well, you know, we're 2 years into the Trump administration, he's built a record of achievement, tax cuts, deregulation, some foreign policy breakthroughs. It's not a bad record for a bunch of riffraff, is it?
Oh, he's gone and he's succeeded in spite of some of the people around him. And that's a tribute to the president's leadership style and his persistence and his toughness, all of which I've gotten to know over my 17 years of friendship with him, and I think is very well outlined in the book about my admiration for the president's toughness and his ability to persevere. But he shouldn't have to do that. The presidency's tough enough, and he didn't have to. We had a plan ready for him that he had commissioned us to start in May of 2016. 30 binders worth of information that was ready to go by 140 people, Gerry, who volunteered across all different types of organizations to work to try to get a Trump presidency ready to go. And folks like Rick Dearborn, Jared Kushner, and Steve Bannon literally threw that stuff in the garbage.
So what did he get wrong? What was in those briefing books that he didn't do?
A lot of the personnel choices. For instance, you can't have someone like Mike Flynn as the National Security Advisor. Temperamentally ill-suited to do that. And he's really the guy who got the Mueller probe, the pre-dating of the Mueller probe, rolling. Because of his conduct of dealing with Kislyak and others in the Russian government, and then lying about it not only to prosecutors, but lying about it to the Vice President of the United States. I told the president for 6 months before he was elected, stay away from Mike Flynn, he's trouble. That's one example. Some of the people in the cabinet who turned out to be disappointments, whether it's Tom Price at HHS, whether it's Rex Tillerson at the State Department, who he barely knew before he gave the job. You know, these are things that set the president back. He could have even a greater record than what he's got so far, but he didn't have the people in place, and a lot of empty desks, too.
And you're critical of some of the things he did, the immediate focus on trying to repeal Obamacare, for example, the immediate attempt to ban people from certain Muslim-majority countries from coming into the country. What effect did that have?
Well, first off, on the Muslim ban issue, we had listened to him during the campaign and the transition team, and we had an executive order ready that had been reviewed by former Justice Department lawyers and former White House council members who said that they had something that was legally defensible. That was thrown out, and Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller wrote a ban on the back of an envelope, you know, and it did not withstand legal scrutiny. That's a failure, and it sets the president back, and it makes him look bad. On the Obamacare thing, I begged them, don't lead with Obamacare. We all know what a difficult issue that is. You're trying to get a new Congress together. Start with tax cuts. Start with things that will unite your Republican base. Then move to infrastructure, which will grab some Democrats across the line and show you can be a bipartisan leader. After doing those two things, then move to Obamacare, because you've got some momentum behind you. Instead, he started with the hardest thing, and he did it, he told me, because Paul Ryan told him that's what he had to do. And what I said to him is Ronald Reagan wouldn't have done it this way.
You're also critical of Jared Kushner, President's son-in-law, key strategic advisor. You criticize his lack of political experience. To be fair, you also acknowledge you have a bit of history with the Kushner family. You prosecuted and essentially sent to jail Jared Kushner's father. People will say, well, you know, that's inevitably going to colour your view of given the role that Jared Kushner has, it's so important, it's going to colour your view of the way the administration is performing.
Well, listen, I have absolutely nothing against the Kushner family. I did my job, Gerry. You know, I got presented with a set of facts, and it might surprise some of your viewers to know I've never met Charles Kushner. I've never met Jared's dad. I prosecuted him. I saw him in court 3 times. We never exchanged words. And up until in the chapter that's entitled Jared's Meltdown, when he came in uninvited to a meeting with me and Donald Trump, trying to prevent me from becoming transition chairman, I never met Jared. And so I have nothing against the Kushner family, and as far as Jared's concerned, what I did in the book was just tell the stories.
But what do you think of his... I mean, he's been given a lot of responsibility in the administration. He's been given China relations to some extent, Middle East, some other important areas of foreign policy. What do you think of his performance?
I think it's a mixed bag. So, for instance, on criminal justice reform, I think he did a very good job in terms of bringing things together and working hard for the president and getting a good result. But I think in other areas, he's in over his head. And that's no criticism. It's just acknowledgement of the fact that he's in his mid-30s and his only real experiences as a real estate executive. And so, you know, he doesn't even have a lot of life experiences in addition to not a lot of job experiences. So him being in that position, let's be frank, is because he's the president's son-in-law. That's the president's choice. But the point of the transition committee was to surround the family members with folks of unquestionable integrity and unquestionable experience in government to supplement them.
And to be clear, you're convinced you were dropped as you had been running the transition program. You were dropped purely because of Jared's opposition, essentially.
Well, and that's what Steve Bannon told me when he fired me. So I have no reason not to believe that.
And that's why you're not in the administration.
Listen, I could be in the administration, Jerry. The president has offered me Secretary of Labor, Secretary of Homeland Security, Special Assistant to the President, and 2 ambassadorships. But those were not jobs that I wanted, and so I respectfully declined.
We are roughly halfway through the first Trump administration. Should there be more than one? How would you rate? Well, what kind of a grade would you give the Trump administration so far?
I'd give the president a B. And I'd say he gets good marks for the tax cuts, the growing economy, continued growing economy, and job creation. He gets great marks for deregulation, which I think also adds to our robust economy. He gets great marks on the judiciary. He has put some wonderful people on the Supreme Court and on our circuit and district courts. And he gets, to me, great grades for his renegotiation of the North American trade deal with Mexico and Canada. I think those are the big pluses. And I think on some of the minuses was the Obamacare debacle and just some of the chaos that's gone on. On the foreign policy side, I'm in favor of what he's doing in North Korea with Kim Jong-un. The other approaches haven't worked. I'm not sure this one will, but the president's given it a shot that personal diplomacy may make a difference. And I like what he's doing with North Korea. I like what he's doing with China trade. The Chinese have been stealing for us forever, and so the president decided to stand up.
It sounds a little bit as more process that you're concerned about than actual outcomes of policy. Getting the order of policy wrong, maybe some bad appointments.
And missed opportunities, Jerry. Missed opportunities. I think we don't have a Republican Congress anymore. And a lot of things that we'd want to do in the second half of a Trump term, we can't do. And those are things we didn't accomplish in the beginning because we wasted time. And that's the problem.